So day 3, Housing Transformation Summit. So I am Jennifer Cooper. If I haven't met any of you, I am a fractional CMO and executive marketing consultant to the home building industry. And we're excited to keep moving along our sessions with digital transformation and how we can really update and move our marketing in new directions. So yesterday we talked about how do we move buyers down the digital funnel, how do we engage them, how do we attract them. A lot of talk about on-demand and really, catering to our buyers' experience. And today we're going to start talking more about personalization. So we've hopefully in our journey where our brand is identified as something special when we're attracting those buyers, and now how do we have the proof is in the pudding of how our brand is going to work through our customer journey and through our customer experience. So we're super excited to have a track today where we're going to meet these two gentlemen here and talk about generative design, and then also we're going to talk about digital design centers later this afternoon and some how we can demystify how difficult or easy it is to implement digital design centers. So a lot around personalization and the customer journey. So today our sponsor is HighArc, and we will have a presentation from Alex here at the end, not at the beginning, so I have that a little bit different. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'd love to introduce my panelists here. We have a smaller group. We have a little more room at calling this the dining room table this week, so we have a little bit more room at the table. So here on the far end here, we've got Alex Hunter. He is the Vice President of Marketing for HighArc. And HighArc, if you did not know, offers cutting-edge cloud SaaS technology for home builders, and Alex oversees all aspects of brand development, demand generation, and marketing. Before joining HighArc, Alex was head of product at ShopMonkey, a venture-backed SaaS company offering solutions for automotive shops in the United States and Canada. Alex began his career at Apple Retail, which is super cool, in Atlanta, where he went on to build a successful 13-year track record in consumer technology by holding key positions at Apple, Google, and Logitech, where he led product marketing campaigns and global launches for the original Apple Watch SE, Watch Bands, and Google Nest smart displays. Got to work on some really cool stuff. And then next to me here, we have Paul Hansen. He's the president of Epcon Franchising, and he has been in the home building industry for 20 years, beginning his career with a national builder, serving in leadership roles in construction and purchasing in several markets. In 2018, Paul was appointed president of Epcon Franchising, a network of independent builders across the United States, building homes and communities popular with the 55-plus demographic, and has since presided over a period of strong growth in the recruitment of builders and development of existing ones. Paul was a speaker at the 2020 International Builder Show, speaking to the benefits that franchised home building can offer local builders. He was a 2020 Pro Builder Magazine 40 Under 40 award recipient, recognized for his leadership and fresh approach to culture, service, and innovation in an industry that's often stuck in its old habits. And I think this week's about getting out of those old habits. So thank you guys for joining us. Can you advance for me, actually?
Oh, sure.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about how Epcon and other builders can bring technology into the structural components of a home for greater personalization and elevated customer experience. And we're going to talk about how we integrate marketing into that. So very excited to have this conversation. So session overview, I have a few key points we're going to learn from today. So we're going to review how teams can become more efficient in purchasing, production processes, and protocols with more personalization in the hands of the customer at the floor plan selection stage. So how do we remove more of the paper from our experiences? We're going to explore a real-life case study that showcases how product development and sales can evolve, sharing new tools. We're going to discuss how generative design can increase capacity for a builder creating new plans and options with the same amount of manpower. Getting efficiencies in product design is something we could all use to speed up the process for our customer. Understand how more personalization drastically changes the customer experience and creates marketing efficiencies. And then finally, we'll review the lessons learned, opportunities, and challenges ahead with implementation of generative design processes and tools with large and small builders. So we're talking about a solution that isn't just for a company the size of Epcon, but really could be scalable with a lot of different companies and the tools that HighArc offers. So, all right. So we're going to kick off. I just mentioned the word generative design, and I told Alex, I said, not everybody in the room may know what generative design is. So we'd love a just a brief definition of that for anybody who doesn't.
Yeah, and now I'm not an architect by trade, so I think without going into too much technical detail, the way to think about generative design versus traditional CAD is it really comes down to relationships, right? So when you're drafting a plan or you're designing a home, you're manually drawing lines with CAD, and they don't really have any context over the environment that's around them, right? You have to do all that one by one. With generative design, you're actually creating a data object or a model it can look like a CAD program, but the difference is there's actually intelligent relationships between all the different elements when you're modeling this out. So if you say, hey, this room I've drawn is a garage, it understands what to do with all the walls and fixtures and windows and everything around it. And so it's a different way to approach design and drafting, and it's been really transformational for, as we'll see, for builders like Paul and team.
Awesome. Hopefully that helps clear that up if anybody didn't know. So Paul, talk about, give us a little bit of background about what made Epcon want to move in the direction of doing something with your, with your product design and considering generative design in your customer experience.
Well, in the beginning, it was all about solving various pain points we had, just the time it took to draft and the typical platforms that we all are used to using. And then also just the customer experience side of it, just trying to get away from paper assets, brochures in the sales centers, and disconnected materials that customers were even viewing online, to go to something that's more all-inclusive and really a better experience for the buyers.
Awesome. Advanced. So tell us a little bit about how, we have a lot of different buyers. We've got 55 plus everywhere, down to, we were talking about yesterday, Gen Z is starting to even, we need to be looking ahead about how we're going to market, how we're going to offer customer experience, how we're going to move buyers through the spectrum. So how did you look at offering this different way of customization and integrating digital technology for a broader spectrum of buyers, knowing that they all adapt and use technology and have different expectations in their buyer process?
Yeah, well, for us, we build pretty much exclusively for the 55 plus demographic, so that's who we serve. And there's a misperception out there that they don't use technology, they're not comfortable with it, but our buyers are on their iPads even more than their kids and grandkids are. So they've become very comfortable with it, and they are even coming to expect that type of experience that they're used to getting with Amazon or other tech companies out there. So for us, having 1,000 different options on a home, down to a sitting room extension, all the way to courtyard customizations, things like that, the hardscape that they can do. Just being able to show it to them in a more visual format is really helpful versus just giving them a piece of paper that shows something in 2D and maybe in black and white that they really can't get excited about. And so for us, the first part of this discussion is going to be how we really overhauled our entire plan collection this year. We have 8 main detached plans that we do, and prior to our partnership with HiArc, they all lived in a 2D and then more recently in a 3D setting in Revit. We had never really overhauled them since we introduced them about 10 years ago. And when we did make some tweaks, one example, we introduced a new plan a couple of years ago. It took us over 2 years to do it, and just very time consuming from the drafting standpoint all the way to getting the marketing assets at the end. Now with HiArc, we were able to set a very aggressive goal this year to overhaul and really start with a blank sheet of paper on all 8 of them. And we weren't changing the interiors too much. We were adding some new options, but the exteriors are all new, so more contemporary looks on all of them. And as Alex talked about, just the generative way that HiArc works is what makes something that aggressive possible. And we've already completed 4 of them this year, and the other 4 will be done at the end of this month. And just the way that we can draft and the speed at which we can do it in HiArc is a game changer for us, because now in HiArc, you see there on the right of this slide, just the way that it works, and I can't get into the technical engineering details of it, but I can tell you how it works and how cool it is. Basically, you draw a room, you tell HiArc what kind of room it is. Is it a bathroom, a bedroom? And then it automatically populates a lot of the components that go into that room. So it's not like a Revit or an AutoCAD situation where you're manually drafting all the things within a room. Right. You tell HiArc what it is, it's going to automatically add, if it's a bathroom, the shower, the vanity, the toilet, and then you can kind of drag them around. So just one of my drafting people has said, just off the cuff, 10 times faster than drafting in Revit, which is what he's always known, what he learned in school. And so for us to be able to go out and after spending over a year in most cases when we even just tweak a plan or add some new options to it, to now do 8 of them within 1 year has been incredible for us.
Right.
And just as one example of how Hierarch works in this centralized data model, one change we made in the shift this year is on our exteriors, we went with taller windows across the board instead of more traditional windows with a mold transom above. In the old days, that would be a very labor-intensive change to go into each design file, update it. Now in Hierarch, you just tell it, change these 3050 windows to 3064 windows. It automatically applies it across the collection. So this is just a good graphic that Alex did that kind of shows how that works.
Yeah, built it last night. No, I think it's visually describes general design in a really helpful way, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, these things are thought of as data objects in the program, and so manipulating them and changing them is, you can do it in one place and cascade that across, whether it's a few local plans or at a community level or a regional level, where if it's manually set up as lines on 400 different plans, the amount of time that goes into to pivot is just astronomically different. So it is one of my favorite graphics. And you can see that here, right? With the same amount of people, the same number of drafters, you can offer more options for your customers than ever before. And Tim talked about this yesterday, right? In terms of, all right, what does your blue ocean strategy kind of look like? How are you going to differentiate and offer new innovation and meet customers where they are? And you can do that with an approach like generative design because of the flexibility it gives you to go out and bring the right products to market. So we've been really excited to see to partner with you all and see that continuing to take shape over the next year.
I'm real curious, when you onboarded this technology and talked about it, did you have a panel or a board of people that you were coming in, like looking at the solution, talking about how you'd implement it? So it's kind of talking about how do you kind of create these task teams to bring technology in. It's not just one person. You have to have really a buy-in from several people across departments.
In the beginning, no, it was a committee of just me. And
Well, you're allowed to.
really a pilot program of sorts to see if this really had traction to it, if it could work. Now, our initial agreement with Hierarch expired at the beginning of this year. So when we were considering a renewal, we did put together a team and we collaborated on what the ROI has been so far, what we've seen in our communities, and that was marketing, sales, purchasing, construction, all participating in that. And we were able to pretty easily demonstrate to our owners that we were getting a net benefit from using this software, and then the renewal discussion was pretty easy.
Gotcha.
So I know it's a lot. If this is your first time hearing about this entire concept, it is a lot to wrap your head around. And so I think the best way to explain it, and I have an architect on my staff, and he just loves the fact that now we're a one-stop shop, that outside of engineering for the moment, we do have to go to a third party for that, but our marketing assets, all of our electrical drawings, mechanical drawings, everything lives in Hierarch. It's all connected, so we make an update here. It flows through to everything else. So that's really what we're talking about here, just getting away from the piecemeal approach that many of us are used to in home building and going into one platform where everything lives in real time. So this session is about personalization, customer experience, so we'll spend the bulk of our time talking about that. And one thing that really didn't exist at the time we first started working with Hierarch in 2020 was this customer-facing feature that we now have. So that buyer journey for us with Hierarch starts in our sales center, which is typically located in one of our clubhouses. You'll see on the slide there's a touchscreen TV in the background. That's where the Hierarch kiosk, as we call it, lives in our sales setting. So buyers will come in and then start working with the sales consultant on personalizing their home, and they're going to see it in 3D, in color, in real time as they make changes to it. So here's what that looks like. I've picked our most popular floor plan, the portico, and so the first step, they're going to pick their exterior elevation, they're going to pick their color palette, and as they're making those changes, they can toggle back and forth, and it's updating immediately with the exact colors that the customer is considering, the exact exterior elevation. And again, all of this is coming from the master design file, so we make one change to a window size on the front end, it's immediately viewable in this view, no going back and updating drawings or other marketing assets.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really great in terms of how Epcon's approached it, right? Starting with the Design Center a few years ago is, it's a perfect example of a builder embracing this mindset that, hey, we're a tech company. Right? That's when it comes to consumers, shoppers, buyers, whatever you want to name them, their experiences with all the other apps and services in their life, right, are happening in a certain manner. And when it comes to buying the most expensive item in their entire life, right, I think seeing you all kind of embrace this approach, and obviously, you know, we're happy to help with making that happen. I think it's been really valuable, and we've seen some great success. I just think that's such an important mindset shift that you guys have made.
Yeah, one of our founders has always said, we're a sales and marketing company that happens to build houses. And in 2023, you really have to be a sales and marketing tech company that
That's
also builds houses to
great.
be successful.
That's a great point. How are you finding customers? Are they moving more towards additional upgrades? Are they thinking through the process a little more? Maybe are they spending any more money going through this process?
They are, and we launched Hierarch incrementally, so we didn't put it in all of our communities right away. As we started a new one or launched a new market, we'd go live with Hierarch there. And so an unintended benefit of that is when we had the renewal discussion earlier this year, we had a case study of how Hierarch communities were performing and non-Hierarch communities were performing. So we had data points, shorter sales cycle from web registration to contract in Hierarch communities. Tells me people are getting excited when they see something in real time, color, 3D. And then also higher option take rates in the Hierarch communities, because again, if you can see what that sitting room extension off our primary bedroom looks like in 3D, kind of spin it around and get a feel for it, you're much more likely to buy it. So again, just going back quickly to the one-stop shop part of this, what we're trying to solve from a buyer standpoint is just the confusion. And there's internal confusion too, and you see that here, just the different areas that are siloed off. We'd have our plans living in one type of software, we'd do our takeoffs in another, we'd go to another third party to do our marketing assets. So a lot of confusion, difficulties on our part, but then also confusion on the part of the buyers. And I've moved quite a bit in my career, so I've experienced it myself, even being in the industry, somebody that's very familiar with how production builders work. If I would go and shop one of them when I was moving to, say, Indianapolis or back to Columbus, just seeing even the confusion on the sales consultants part of what they were actually selling was really kind of mind-boggling to me. And it's something that we're working to solve by having this one-stop shop. So it's really no surprise when you think about that confusion that happens on the buyer's part, this shocking statistic out there that 60% of people that say it's more stressful to buy a home than to go into the dating scene. And when you think about it, we're builders. We should be in the business of building dreams, making those dreams come true, and really getting people excited. But they're stressed out because it's not only a long process, but it can be a confusing and complicated process. And so by going to something like this one-stop shop that we've talked about, we're solving that because everything lives in the same setting. Everybody internally is on the same page. And the salespeople, a lot of whom are new because we do have a lot of turnover in sales in our markets, they can have confidence in what they're actually presenting to the buyer, knowing that it's accurate.
So the power of buyer personalization, right? One of the key topics we're going to make sure we cover, and we're already seeing this approach really have a profound impact on the industry. It was touched on a little bit at the keynote on Monday, and you can see how it's playing out for EPCON as well. And so I'm definitely passionate about this subject, but it's like, okay, great, Alex, you know, that's your opinion, but numbers don't lie. And so there's some amazing statistics from some third-party areas out there that talk about, hey, what do buyers expect when it comes to personalization? And a lot of them expect personalization. And when they don't get it, they're not happy at the brands and companies that don't offer it, when they just feel like a number in this sea of consumers and shoppers. And there's a huge benefit for builders and brands that embrace personalization, as you see in stat number 2 and 3, right? Those buyers spend more money with brands and builders that offer personalization, right? Which leads to referrals, right? Because when people have a great experience, they like to talk about it. The opposite side is when they have bad experience, they really like to talk about it. And then, you know, that plays out for the company in terms of the value that's created, right? They get more revenue from as a business, which you've seen, whether it's from upgrades and different selections and so on and so forth. So definitely don't just take my word for it. I think there's some great statistics to kind of go back on. And so I thought it'd be fun to spend a few moments talking about a case study from outside the industry as well, which is, of course, near and dear to my heart, is on the Apple Watch side. And so when we officially launched this back in 2015, we offered a number of different SKUs and products, of course. But personalization really was at the core of what we wanted to do from the get-go, right? This is the most personal device you've ever had on your wrist. So how do we bring that to millions of consumers across the globe? Right? And so we launched something called Apple Watch Studio a few years later, in which you can start your journey online to really create your own style and make it your own, right? You can see some similarities between that and creating your dream as a builder. And so you go online and you say, hey, what size do I want? What type of case? What type of band? What type of connectivity do I want? What really kind of speaks to me? It's a very simple journey. But as you do that, you start to get emotionally bought into like, okay, I think I actually will get this product. And so you can do that online, but then that also carries into the retail center as well, very similar to a design center. So it's a cohesive journey across both channels. And you can have that trial and experience with the specialist and go through and say, hey, yes, this truly makes sense for me, and I'm ready to get this, which then plays out in the final product experience. And so you've picked all your selections or your options, and then a specialist will actually assemble this and repackage it for you with your exact case, your exact band, and then you get to walk out of the store with that or have it shipped to your house. And so this was kind of a little bit of an experiment. It was a small percentage of our sales initially, but over time it ended up being a ginormous part. And most watches are personalized because of how easy it is to do and seamless that is from a customer journey standpoint. So, somebody like Apple can tap into that and do that across 19 different countries and 23 different languages and whatnot. I think we, within the home building space, can what lessons can we take from that and provide that for not a $500 product that's on your wrist, but a $500,000 product. And so I think that was a really fun experience to be able to go through, and I think has served some interesting insights.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing, I always like to say the customer is the customer of all things. So Tesla, automotive, Apple, we're creating customer expectations across a lot of different things. Maserati, a really expensive car, is another example. I've looked at it, how they really extend their customer experience. But it's a more expensive product, is what I mean. Some people will say 500 versus 500,000. It's like, okay,
right.
Well, what else out there is expensive? But we're still creating those specs around how I look, how I personalize, what are my expectations, how am I serviced in and out of the store. Apple isn't all online. It still has that storefront. And when you go to Apple, besides the big long lines and the waiting process, but you still know what kind of service you're going to get. So, you're creating that brand experience. And so customers are going to come in with, we don't care if they're going to buy a $200,000 or $1 million plus home. The world is creating these experiences, which we have to learn to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Adapt to at some point.
100%.
Wow, if you're shopping Maserati, I need to move to the
Well,
marketing
I'm
department.
not. I'm not, but I watch the brand experiences. Someday maybe.
But again, to Alex's point that if Apple can do that on a $500 product, we need to do something really special on a $500,000 product. And rising. It's more like $600,000 these days. But a couple of years ago, this is what personalization looked like in our world. And I think it still looks this way for some builders out there at the very least, where you're marking up these different floor plans, brochures, kind of circling things, trying to give the buyer a sense of what they're actually getting, how it all comes together as a finished product. And really, again, just that level of confusion and stress that's going to cause for them is something that we should be avoiding in today's marketplace. So we talked earlier about the first stage there in the sales center. We're picking the elevation, the color palette. Then you go to a next step where you start to dial into more of the features and components of the house. So at this stage, buyers are selecting everything that we consider to be structural options. So anything that we want to see on the floor plans, the construction drawings. So that would be even down to fireplaces, built-in cabinets, kitchen layouts, things like that. So they're going through with the salesperson, making all those personalizations. And again, they're seeing it happen in real time, just in a simple browser, so they can even do it at home if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. And then we'll talk a little bit about how they can view it later when they get a personalized brochure and link.
Mm-hmm. Are there any things you're not including within this technology from a personalization standpoint?
Today, it's just the design studio items, the flooring cabinets, exact cabinet selections that they make. And so we'll talk about what's coming eventually and what that experience should look like in a year or two. But again, at the end of the process, they hit submit. That configuration, as we call it, now lives in the system, so a sales consultant or a customer can go back and view it later. Final step, the sales consultant either prints out a personalized brochure or emails it to them, just in PDF format. That brochure is going to show exactly what they've selected. It's going to show a little snippet of the elevation of the front, and then a floor plan, first and second floor if they opted for our optional bonus suite. Again, exactly what they selected. So it's going to show that sitting room extension. It's going to show the deluxe owner suite if they've selected that. And so just no confusion on the part of the buyer. In that email, they also get a unique URL that they can click on, and they can pull up the configuration in 3D and view it from home. And we encourage people to share that on social media, get their friends talking about it. They can't make any changes at that point, so it's locked. It could be considered a sale almost at that point. But again, they're able to view it, pull up the brochure, see their exact selections.
Yeah. I think that personalization element, that going from what you see in the design center to something tangible in your hands is, I think, such a big brand trust builder, right? I think everyone in this room has probably purchased a car before, right? If you walked out to the lot and it was just a generic black on black, let's say Ford Explorer, and then the sales gentleman or woman that started a few months ago, and then you just went through and kind of took a marker and put stickies all over the car in terms of what you wanted, the actual color and the options, and they said, oh, I got you, right? We'll ship it to you in a few months. Give me your credit card. Don't worry, everything will be fine. I don't know if I would be down for that. So when getting a personalized brochure that's not some generic plan with red markups, I think goes a long way for building that trust, right, with that shopper that has walked in or is even doing this online.
I'm curious, are you finding time efficiencies, especially, when you're picking out your selections for your exterior? Many times we've got, the boards on the wall, or go drive around over to this community where you'll see this paint color. So I'm assuming you're finding more efficiencies through this opportunity to kind of play. This isn't, again, we talked yesterday about gaming. One of the panelists talked about giving the gaming opportunity to our buying experience. So you're doing that here. What's timing look like?
In speaking to our sales consultants, what they're seeing is just more efficiencies in decision making, that buyers aren't going back and forth on, do I want this elevation or that elevation, or do I want the sitting room or the covered porch? They're making those decisions faster, moving the contract faster because they're seeing it right in front of their eyes.
That remote's tricky.
Yeah.
Finicky. Let's see. I don't know if it's.
This happened yesterday.
Did it?
Yeah.
Well,
Can you advance for us, gentlemen?
We need an assist.
I know.
Yeah, they're working on it.
Okay. Well, on that point, as we go to the next slide, obviously from a sales and marketing side, this is great, right? We get to produce this brochure and get buyers really excited. But then when it comes time to build, what happens, right? Is what the buyer actually purchased going to get built? And going back to Paul's earlier point around the traditional silos and workflows at a builder, having a kind of single source of truth to make sure every team stays in sync is a super important part. And Epcon and others are able to do that with this generative design technology and a single platform to produce permit-ready, lot-specific CDs. And so your construction teams and operations folks would be very excited that it's like, great, I'm not dealing with that marked up sheet as well that the customer put all their stuff all over. Nothing gets lost in translation, and that I know has played a big role into actually bringing the personalization, having the business impact that you all have hoped. Oh, now we're back to the beginning.
The next area we were going to talk about is marketing and some of the marketing efficiencies. We'll just keep going and see if it comes back. But we're going to talk about the marketing efficiencies because trying to create renderings, that takes a lot of time. It takes money. I know my marketing friends in the room, a couple of them, know that we're always trying to say, where are the final plans so we can get that started? And trying to even go into pre-sales without anything to market is always challenging. So talk about how HiArc has helped in this process, and some of the amazing statistics you have on your marketing efficiencies is fabulous.
Sure. Yeah, and particularly this year with that update to the plan collection, we went with a craftsman architectural style and a farmhouse architectural style. And then within each of those two, of the first 4 home designs that we updated, there were 35 unique elevations of each. So 70 renderings that we would have to do, and 3 different color palettes. So just, you can get a sense, and marketing people I'm sure know that, just how the number of renderings snowballs as you add complexity to your offering. And so within a matter of weeks, really about a month plus or so, we were able to get all 70 of those rendered through HiArc, and it's a fully automated process, again, because it's coming from the master model at the front. And just the speed at which they were able to do them, and the time savings that we had, because we knew, again, that they were coming off of the master file for that home design. So we didn't have to spend a lot of time, if any, really reviewing it to make sure that the trim pieces were accurate, the windows were accurate, because that's how it's looked in our past, that we would send it off, send our CAD files or Revit files off to a third-party vendor. They would create them. They'd send us a link to a studio where we would redline them. They'd update them again, then we'd have them. So to do 70, I would have taken us months at least, and a lot of time and effort on our part. And instead, we were able to do it this quickly, and this is one of our prototypical new elevations in the farmhouse look that we were able to get all 70 of those done just in a matter of weeks.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really great.
It's really a stunning model, and there's a fun little technology element here that I like to geek out on a little bit. These renders are produced by the Unreal Engine 5, which is the world's leading computer graphics engine. For those of you who might be familiar, I'm former a recovering gamer, and so I definitely geek out and get excited when I see something like this going through the buying journey. And when you think about those, there was 2 big categories of buyers, right, that Tim talked about on Monday, right, in terms of that 55, 60 plus, and then there's that millennial and slightly younger generation. So as much as I don't want to put the millennial label on myself, I will for the moment. And having a render like this reminds me of those other entertainment experiences and games that I've played. And so I get really excited about this. And so when a builder does this for me for something that I plan on living in for 10, 15 years, it signifies like they understand what I'm looking for. They understand what I'm excited about. And so I think Epcon's just done a great job of making this a centerpiece for how they go to market and show up to buyers.
And in your design, are you doing anything? Is it pretty much just the front elevation? Are you showing anything in your other modeling when you're actually configuring the home? Are you showing anything with proximity to where the lot lines are, or is it really just focused on the actual product that they're buying?
Yeah, it's just based on their house. It's not an augmented reality situation where we plugged in the rest of the community or anything like that.
Yet.
So it's just looking at theirs. Yeah, yet. We'll get there. And yeah, I've been really impressed just with the quality of these renderings out of that platform that Alex was talking about. And I didn't mention earlier, actually one of the most stressful parts of the rendering process is at the end when we would show them to our owners. And one of the 2 is a very, very creative-minded, very particular person, and he would always have comments, even at the end of a rendering process, for us to go back and make some changes to flower beds or certain colors. And he looked at these HiArc renderings, the first batch of them, and his only comment was, wouldn't it be cool if the lawn looked like it was freshly mowed? So we went back to HiArc, said, can you put mow lines in the yard? And they said, well, you want horizontal, diagonal. Said, give us 3 options, show us, and we settled on this look, which does look really nice, crisp, fresh lawn.
Yeah.
But yet another pain point for us, because we can't seem to build the same elevation look in every community that we do. We get some really difficult municipalities that will have us change the exteriors from time to time. And so that has been its own painstaking process. If we have one community, say in Atlanta, where we have to change the exterior, add more brick, more windows, then we're typically building a master set just for that project of drawings, then ordering renderings and marketing brochures. Again, now we're all streamlined. We just build that Forsyth County, Georgia farmhouse option, change the windows, change the masonry if needed, and then we're able to run renderings pretty quickly. So here's an example of one of those that we did in Atlanta recently. And after the first batch of those 70 renderings that were done in about 5 weeks, We had these done in another 2 weeks for 3 new communities we're launching in Atlanta later this year.
I mean, imagine your streetscapes are gorgeous because there's going to be a lot of just differentiation
A lot
than
of
what you're
variety,
seeing,
yes.
normally. So that's great. That's important for community development. So yeah, definitely want to talk about lessons learned. I think one of the questions I have, we had in some of our conversations is, can this scale and work for any size builder, or do you need to be a certain size to really make this work? So I know you have an opinion on that, so.
Yeah. Well, I think it can work for any builder. And what any builder that wants to consider this needs to know is you do need to have a drafting person in place. And it can typically be one person. We do 600 homes a year, so our team is 4 people just working in HiArc. But again, the speed at which you can do things there allows you to do much of this with one person if you're doing, say, even 50 homes per year. And just the ability that you can personalize and even customize very quickly in the platform. Now, if you're a small builder, custom builder that does 10 homes a year and everything starts with a blank sheet of paper, this might not be a fit for you. But I would imagine everybody in this room, or most builders that would be here, stick to a fairly consistent plan collection, have some go-to options that they do, and all of that can be programmed pretty well in HiArc.
And another question I have just on the process, having worked with my purchasing friends and understanding how supply has been changing, has there been any issues with worries or concerns if a certain product is not going to be available, but it's configured in the system? How do you really manage supply of your products with your purchasing team?
Well, that hasn't been an issue, thankfully, recently, but it is something that can be addressed fairly quickly. Again, go back to the window example. So if we had an issue where certain sizes of windows weren't available for us anymore, we make that change, and then we can republish that change to any job in HiArc. And you have the option of protecting your backlog if you want to. You can lock certain jobs so they don't change. But if you want to apply something across your entire backlog and your collection, you can do that fairly quickly to respond to supply chain issues.
Gotcha. And I have more questions from the end because I wanted you guys to kind of give the overview. Is there, you mentioned a URL, so after I'm a customer going through this process and I've gotten the URL of what my final home should be, is there also a portal that, have you worked with any kind of portals? Because that's kind of come up with other conversations about where are you housing all the information so as a buyer can go back to really looking at their journey or what they selected, because they're going through a lot of conversations and they may have that memory issue.
Well, buyer portal, write that down, HiArc guys. We do have a portal that we use to communicate with our buyers. It's not on HiArc, so they can see all their information on there, and it's two-way communication.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
separate from this right now.
Awesome. So I know we're going to now jump into, lessons learned.
Yes. I would say first, it's a mindset shift, just like anything. And when I first brought this to my team, the drafting people, they were a little worried, is this AI going to take my job? They're a lot more comfortable with that now. They can just do more. And we have no intention of reducing the size of our staff. We just have intentions of doing more and more. Also, mindset shift on the part of the salespeople who are used to using those materials that are in the model home. And early on, I would get questions. They'd say, well, this brochure doesn't show it like it looks in HiArc. I said, okay, you're not getting it. That brochure is outdated. We need to get it out of the sales center. Rely on what you see in HiArc because that's the real-time configuration of what that house looks like.
I think on that point, the folks that we've seen and teams, builders that have been the most successful are the ones that embrace change, right? It's that mindset shift rather than, historically there's a lot of resistance to change. And like, I don't want to update my plans. I don't want to do X. And so the teams that say, you know what, this is going to really transform how we work and how we build, they've had a ton of success. And so I think that's, just building on your point, it's definitely a mindset shift. And I think number two, one of the lessons that we've learned from builders that have been extremely successful with this personalized approach is really thinking about the buyer journey from the get-go and from the start, and designing what you want that experience to look like. When I say design, I don't mean how it looks. Design is not how something looks. Design is how something works, how something feels. And Epcon is a great example of someone that say, hey, I'm gonna think about that almost as a storyboard from end to end and how that plays out for my buyer, and where does technology play a role in that along their experience. In this example, Hierarch plays a big role, but there can be other components as well with the sales center and CRMs and so on and so forth. So I think that has been a big lesson that we've seen from Paul and team and others.
So earlier this week, we talked about expanding on the buyer journey, the buyer continuum, and adding in other components, like we're talking about helping someone configure their mortgage or thinking about decor of the home. Do you see any opportunity for other future integrations with personalization coming in outside of what you have built here today?
Yes, it's on the roadmap. So right now, the buyer's journey in Hierarch kind of ends at the time of contract when they've made all their structural selections. Within the next year, we're going to have that experience continue at our design studio, where we'll still have people meet with our designers, come to our design studio, but the goal will be to have everything living in that kiosk there where they can make the selections down to their cabinets, their flooring, everything else that goes into the house. And that'll allow us to get away from what we're using right now for our design center experience, which is just basic static images on a website that they can see what a cabinet looks like or what a little swatch of the hardwood looks like, to where they can actually see all of it built out inside their house.
Sure. And another question more on the production side of things that I wanted to address earlier, but how have your trades responded to this? Because I know they like to have an expect of where they are in their build cycles and where they're in their phase. So how have they adjusted to working with you?
There's a very short learning curve in the beginning because these drawings that come out of Hierarch look a little different than our old Revit and AutoCAD drawings. So once they got familiar with that, it was a really seamless change. They like the fact that everything is very site specific down to what the customers actually selected. And they're also a little condensed. They're not as long as our old sets used to be with all the details and everything that really nobody ever looked at. So they've liked the fact that they're a little more easier to digest, and they can rely on the fact that they're accurate to what they actually need to install on the site.
Awesome. So what's next? What's on the roadmap? I know we talked a little bit about personalization. So I'll call out some things I'm not seeing, but I think it's on your roadmap. Virtual model tours. So that's an important part of how you pull in the customer and also see how the inside of the house is going to feel. So
Yeah.
What's on the roadmap for Hierarch?
Yeah, I think to Paul's earlier point, when we're thinking about what does that selections process look like, and how do you really help a customer truly imagine what that space is going to be like for them post-purchase, right? Like paint a vision of that future. And so while we're heavily focused on the kind of the structural options side now, which has historically been a very challenging pain point, taking that from the whole home and looking at that is definitely, we're investigating and spending time with Paul and team and others to like shape what that looks like. That's the beauty of software. That's why I love cloud technology, right? And because we can just move at a breakneck pace to innovate and offer new solutions for how the buyer expectations are changing. So that's what we're thinking about is next, is in terms of going inside the home from a tours and selection standpoint, for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think this is the one piece of us. How do we innovate? I love hearing the story of how you're moving the needle, and this is us taking that buyer journey to the next level. I think it's a little scary for builders to think about adding that level of personalization, and how it does really have to take a team, a leader as you came in, but a team to come in and be committed to how do we modify that process. But I love how you've got the integrated marketing efficiencies, the integrative customer experience efficiencies, really raising the bar. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Because we may be able to open it up for a few questions before we get into our sponsor presentation. First time this week, we've run out of time. So does anybody have any questions that they'd love to ask Paul or Alex about this process?
If you want me to troubleshoot your iPhone, we can talk after as well. So
David.
No, great question. It happens in tandem, and that's how we partner up with builders, right? From a training and kind of onboarding standpoint. We have plenty of examples of taking both existing plan sets that you want to migrate into generative design and Hierarch, or you can start fresh with new ones that you want to build as well. So it's a process in which we're kind of with you every step of the way, and we've got a dedicated team to help do that. And I think that's why Paul and team, there was a iterative approach, right, over time to make sure everyone was bought into this kind of new way of building.
Yeah. And I'll add the learning time for my team was quicker than I expected. They call it Hierarch University, so 2 days a week they do a 4-hour Zoom meeting with one of the people on the implementation team. And after that, I think it was a 6-week program, after that concluded, they were pretty well capable of doing everything they needed. It was a quick transition for them. Anybody who knows Revit or any other type of 3D drafting software is gonna do really well in this software.
Yeah.
It can be done that way, and I'll say I wish we did it that way. Decision that was not mine was made that we don't want our pricing in Hierarch, so.
Definitely an option, though.
We launched our Indianapolis market. We had 3 new plans that we had to do because the community required rear garages. So we had a redesign of our most popular plans to put the garage on the rear. And we never built those out in AutoCAD or Revit. We just put them right into Hierarch and started building off of those.
And we partner with third-party architecture firms to, depending on who the builder is, if that's kind of the approach that they want to go. And as Paul mentioned, the learning curve, we've designed it to make as quick of an on-ramp as possible. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, it's definitely a possibility, and we've seen that happen in the past.
Any more questions?
Good questions.
Those are good questions.
All right. Well, we are doing well on time, so you have some
I will do my little spiel
opportunity
here.
to
Yeah.
fully give us his background on Hierarch. Thank you.
I guess I'll stay seated and everything. So, all right, I'll skip over a couple parts since Paul covered a lot of them adequately. But as a little bit of added background, Hierarch is, we call ourselves the home building cloud, and it's one connected platform for you to design, sell, and build amazing homes and communities. So before I dig into like fully what and how we do, which you kind of heard a little bit of that as well, I want to talk about why. Now, as you may have gathered from my intro and so on and so forth, I joined the industry about 6 months ago. And one of the things that I noticed over all my conversations with builders is building homes is really a complex business. It really has opened my eyes to the entire process and really what it takes, not to put together just one home, but hundreds of homes within communities. And so I've got newfound respect for all that goes into it, with the thousands of parts per home, the number of teams involved, whether it's third-party architects or trades or your front office crew. And the reoccurring challenge that I heard throughout all these conversations is really these manual disconnected processes that Paul mentioned, right? This kills productivity. Folks get really frustrated when they're doing all of this rework, doing things that they thought they did right the first time, and now they've got to go back and change it. So you have all these siloed teams, design operations, purchasing, estimating. So when any type of change enters the environment, it just creates a ton of chaos. And so that's not fun for everyone. It's not fun for builders, and it's not fun for buyers. And we know that 5% of building project costs are spent on change and rework. So if you got a $300,000-$400,000 build cost, you do the math, right? It's tens of thousands of dollars spent on just doing stuff that should have been done the first time. And when everyone's trying to keep up, I'm going to reuse this graphic from earlier. Whenever everyone's trying to keep up with those changes, especially coming in from the buyer side, right? Both builders and buyers suffer. You can't offer as much choice. Mistakes start getting made in the field, you get delays, and so on and so forth. And so that's why we as a company got started 5 years ago, and we're on this mission to improve the quality and affordability of homes everywhere through technology and really solve this problem around change and rework. And so our goal is to help you simplify your operations and bring better products to market with one connected cloud. And so that's why we're the home building cloud, and we do that in a variety of different ways, one of which we spend a lot of time on, right? Generative design. And so you can design and change product in Hierarch as a generative design tool up to 100 times faster than CAD because of that data modeling and design automation that we have built in, and the fact that you can manage all of your options in one file, making changes across what has traditionally been hundreds or thousands of plans can happen in minutes instead of taking weeks or months. And this is all in a web browser. This isn't, I'm having to download software on all these PCs for all my 40 drafters, my 4 drafters, or my 400 drafters. And so it's all cloud-based, incredibly fast, and so you're not dealing with endless files that you're trying to chase down. And you can make changes with a single source of truth, which I mentioned earlier, and we get to use this lovely graphic that I designed last night again. All right, and what does that mean for you as a builder? All right, well, as we go into 2024 and beyond, right, adapting to buyer expectations, keeping up with competition in the market, responding to some of the dynamics that are happening in our industry. You can adapt product and launch communities faster when you've got a central connected system that spans your entire team versus a bunch of point software that you have to do a lot of work to keep in sync. Now, you saw the stat earlier, 70% of buyers expect personalization. We know this, great report from McKinsey, and we spent a lot of time talking about our showroom experience within HireArc and how you can dazzle buyers and make more profit on every sale. You've got the easy personalization online with real-time pricing if you'd like, and these 3D models right here are actually built in real time based on the structural options that they're choosing. And that produces that sales collateral and those amazing visualizations. And this helps you sell more options, right? Whether it's 2x or 3x more, or maybe just a few more, and close those deals faster. And we spent some time talking about like how this can supercharge your product marketing with those beautiful visualizations, those personalized brochures. So here's a couple samples of what that could look like for you as a builder. And then finally, all the sales and marketing and stuff in the world, it doesn't matter if you don't have something to build off of. And that's where we finish it out with helping streamline construction. And you can get accurate CDs and takeoffs automatically. And because you're designing these homes in HireArc with a generative design and a data model, this generates these documents automatically for you. And if you go back and make any change on those plans, you can regenerate these within seconds and have the absolute up-to-date version of that. And so you can avoid manual estimating. And we've talked to a number of builders that have gone from maybe 30 to 60 days of doing estimation down to a matter of days. And so they get more time back to do what matters, right? They're not having to work on weekends, and they can really stop variance before it starts. And we've been very, very blessed with some of these stats on some of the results that we've seen with our customers, with like Epcon and others, on having reduced soft cycle time, increased profit because you're selling more options, you're having fewer errors, not to mention just the thousands of hours of productivity that your team is saving, right? Happier employees lead to happier customers and are better for your business overall, because when you're not doing the same thing and you're not handling all that rework and doing pointless manual tasks, you can save a lot of time. Of course, again, don't take my word for it. Some incredible quotes from customers here on how that's had an impact on transforming their business. And so we're full steam ahead into 2024. And of course, we'd love to have a conversation with any of you if you're interested in learning more and how that can help your business. I'm here, and Connor, Kevin, and Kate, a number of folks from HireArc are here. So if you'd love to connect, just give us a holler. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, great one. Just wait 1 second.
So I want to thank our panelists today. I think this was a great example of, my biggest thing when I go to conferences, I want to take away the how-to. This is an example of how do we start to disrupt and do things different. So I love the example. Thank you for joining us today.